You're good.
Okay, so we can go ahead and start at 6:05, the work session, if we want to take roll.
What's the,
Can we do that?
who we are and what the date is?
We're the Historic Review Board, and it's January 22nd at 6:05.
Okay.
Okay?
Ms. Toll? Here. Mr. Medson?
Here?
Mr. Seward?
Here.
Chair McLaughlin?
Here.
And Vicki Yates is absent.
What is that? Oh, well, everybody can see it. That's super. Do you want me to do something with this?
I don't know. I got that showed up in the little slot where all the HRB.
Cool.
So I don't know what it is, and I don't know how it fits onto the existing, and then I
Okay.
got confused, so I just put it there.
Okay, so we're oh heck. Oh, I gotta move this up. There we go. All right, so our first thing is discussion items after being called to order, starting with goals, Historic Review Board.
Sure. And there should be some hard copies
Yeah.
that I printed out. We've moved to kind of a biannual goals, knowing that we can never get anything done any one year. So what I did for 213 through 214 goals is take the previous adopted goals, remove the projects that have been completed, keep projects that sound like they're ongoing, and then add new projects that I thought might want to be added in. So I'd like to go through each of the priorities. Really, this is the meat of the work session today, and discuss issues, ask questions, give me feedback, and then a goal is next month this can be adopted. And the City Commission has actually decided that all of our appointed boards, they're going to have a yearly update with the City Commission at a scheduled meeting. So our idea is we could probably bring this as our goals and then have a conversation of what we're working on. So I think it'll be helpful to always have an adopted work plan. And what we did last year is I tried to always keep the adopted work plan as an item in our agenda just to keep it bubbling in the surface every meeting. So we always had our adopted work plan and where we are on it. So if that works for everybody else, I can continue to doing that. I do like that it keeps showing up as an agenda item so it doesn't get filed away and forgotten about. And reminds us what we're working on, and if we want to reassess based on where we're at. So, does anybody have any questions before we do?
So these are just planned goals for action, but not goals for we had talked about something like not kind of theoretical goals that the HRB might want to tweak its way of understanding the needs of the public and what we might want to do to accommodate.
Oh, that might be policy issues. Kind of when you
Are
have
we
a
gonna talk
conversation
about that?
in kind of conversation. Is that related to like the carport issue? Is
Yeah,
brought up?
yeah.
Yeah, I would say that would fall under item 12. And you notice I don't have any policy discussion items because I think we had some we listed in previous years, and we kind of went through them and either decided that we didn't want to pursue them or we did have a presentation on it. So some of those larger policy issues, we can schedule a work session to talk about them and maybe think about what kind
But
of...
this isn't it.
No, this is really looking at...
These are goals.
These are goals, and if revisiting policy, I think is a goal, and then we can get into subset of policies we'd like to look at.
In a work session in the
And
future, yeah.
I think it works best when you plan at a future work session. We can have a background. I can do a kind of a PowerPoint about the issue. We can have a conversation and decide if that was enough or we want to move forward to do something more formal.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so to start off with what we do every year, we honor the National Trust Preservation Month that happens every May. I just went online. They haven't announced this year's theme yet. So as soon as they announce this year's theme, well, they usually probably do it in February where they announce the theme and get all the press release information. Last year we did the photo contest, and I thought it worked really well, and it was a great PR issue, and Clackamas County Historical Society is interested in helping with us again. And one thing we could do this year is start it earlier. I think we started a little bit later just because it all started a little bit later, but if now that we can pre-plan, we can maybe have it the contest run the whole month of May and maybe finish up at the end of May, rather than what we had it, which was we announced it and it didn't finish till I think the end of June. So that's one thing we can upfront the time a little bit. Last year we used the same theme as the National Trust as our lens of the contest. So based on whatever this year's theme is, we can choose to do the same thing. The last year's was Discover America's Hidden Gems, so we did Oregon City's Hidden Gems. And then Clackamas County did a PR piece with their Ralph Eddy exhibit, their photograph exhibit. So just depending on what the theme is and what we want to do for our angle, we can kind of choose a different way we want to do it. But I think it worked out well. I like that kids were involved. We can keep working on that. And the photo contest money was provided by Danielson's. It was $25 for the child winner, maybe $50 for the teen and $75 for the adult, or something in that realm. And that was totally paid by Danielson's and through Clackamas County Historical Society. So no public money was used for that, and it sounds like that's still on for an option as well. So. And then we always do the Preservation Award. So probably for May, we generally like to get going on that around the March meeting. So start thinking about potential nominations. We've done anything for example of a project to a person. We can do an organization that we feel best meets kind of the overall philosophy and goals of promoting preservation in the city.
Yeah, I know in West Lynn we did a person, and then we did a project.
Yeah, and we could do both too.
Yeah.
And we've done both that before.
Yeah, and this year's West Lynn's 100-year anniversary, so we're parlaying the Preservation Award into August for a certain group. So, but we could do whatever.
Yeah. And that always gets presented at the first City Commission meeting in May. So and then how we do it is generally get votes and nominations sent out, and then it's individual voting that comes back to me. So it's done by email, but you don't talk to each other. You just talk directly.
Well, we got to be thinking.
And then I get
projects or people or something here now. Actually, start thinking about stuff.
Yeah. So the idea is it's kind of done because it's exciting and it's secret. So, but it's not. There's nothing done outside of public time. So. Yeah. Public open meeting. So make sure that, all the conversations kind of directly with me, and then I'll send out the official ballot, and then you can.
We could talk in a work session about different things that we're thinking of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Derek or anything he does.
But and then there can be two, and we've done that before. We've had a person in a project, but it's the Ruth Powers Preservation Award, and it's in honor of her and the work she did and all the work she did for saving historic homes.
Okay.
So that's nothing new. That's kind of what we've done every year. So keep on keeping on. The next one, next February, we'll be applying for our next Certified Local Government Grant. And the way Certified Local Government Grants work is it's a pass-through grant through the State Historic Preservation Office. It's National Park Service money, so federal money. We are a certified local government, so it's a biennium approval. So half of the CLGs apply 1 year and the other half apply the second year. And generally we are budgeted $10,000 for that request, which means we can get about a $10,000 match. So we have about a $20,000 project if we wanted to, up to a $20,000 project.
But that 10 comes from the city.
The city, yeah, and it's budgeted. Generally it's budgeted 5 for each year in a sense.
Okay.
But we
assuming it's there.
Yeah. So unless there's a change in budget, that's generally what we can always rely on. And certified local government grants can go for a lot of things. Survey, as you know, we do really well at, but which I don't think we have actually anything much more to survey. It can write National Register nominations. Anything that's bricks and mortar has to be done it can only be done on National Register buildings, and it, of course, has to meet Secretary of Interior standard. We had previously used we tried to use CLG grant money for our first year of our preservation fund for our grant, our local preservation grant, but that could only be used on National Register property, so it got too complicated. So we've kind Because if we end up not to get a National Register property in for a window repair, we couldn't use the money. But we wouldn't know who was National Register, who wasn't at the beginning of the process. So that's ended up also being the community development funds as well. And that's not restricted by federal requirements for National Register. So there are a lot of options. This is more just a tickler in your brain that we have all this next year to think about it, but I do need to apply next February for it. And so what we're doing now is we're working on number 3, which is our current CLG grant program, which is the multiple property submission of the National Registers for the elevator, the promenade, the Carnegie Library, and the Masonic Building.
Did you get somebody from this board to help you with
And Bob is helping me. So,
that guy?
yeah.
Just amazing.
We are currently, as an update, we've the RFP closed. We have 6 consulting teams that turned in.
I sent
So-
in my email today
Oh, okay.
on the fact that I would vote.
Oh, great. Okay, so I can get it to you. So we're just going through them, and we'll pick one, and we'll move forward with the nomination. What a multiple property submission is, it's real quickly. It's not a district, and it's not an individual. It's kind of a hybrid. We'll create some type of a boundary that will encompass kind of this traditional historic downtown, might be a little bit farther north than 10th, and kind of this upper area of McLaughlin.
But you got 3 public things and
Right.
1 private.
Correct. So so that means if there's any additional public or additional private that want to hook up into this existing multiple property service context, they don't have to. They get a right maybe a 70% nomination because we've done already the 30% of the theme and context. So the chosen consultant's going to work with us just to see how big we can make our boundaries, or what makes sense, or based on existing National Register buildings like the Atkinson Church or the bridge, the Westland Bridge, it's already on it. Maybe we want to encompass already existing National Registers. We wouldn't amend the nomination, but we would list them in the multiple property submission. Like, along with these 4 buildings, here's a list of other National Register structures that are in the boundary, and we would just list them. So just kind of figuring out where all those are and what makes the most logical sense, and what buildings could one day be in if maybe the private owners, or there was a move forward to do that, would they be in this boundary? So it's not that difficult. Like, we'll figure it out, but that's what the consultant's going to finalize and do. And it's due to SHPO, the Historic Preservation Office, in June for the October meeting. So they'll go in front of the October meeting of the State Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, which will review it. They review it, provide comments back. The consultant team will revise the nomination, and then it's sent to the Park Service. So, you never quite know when these things fully get done because they're on their own
Yeah.
time schedule. But if everything goes well, by summer of 2014, the buildings will be on the National Register.
Can a National Register District of Kenema be included just because we are we're a National Register
Yeah,
District?
that's a good question.
So virtually anything within the Kenema boundary then that's in the National Register would also be applicable?
Yeah, that's actually, it's good question, but it's kind of an apple-orange thing. Kenema's already a National Register District, so it's really irrelevant for this
It's
one.
already been done.
So it's already been done. So this really is, honestly,
It's its own
just
thing.
It's its own thing. We could have just written 4 nominations. We've chose to done this. Either
this
way,
works good.
we could go back and 10 years from now, and it could
Dealt with
still
this
be
before.
just these 4 structures, and that might be fine. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just kind of guessing, and we're trying
Sure.
to think a little bit bigger, help future property owners. If they take advantage of it, great. If not, this is fine too.
And
we
that
have 4
segues
buildings on
into
the what?
that segues into number 4.
Yeah, and we have 4
Just to the antithesis of it.
And we have 4 buildings on the National Register, which is great. And as a city, we finally put the 3 buildings, 3 structures that we should be showcasing. So that's great.
What are we going to do with number 4? Do you already have things in mind? Or
Well, those
through
are the ones.
survey?
Yeah,
Do
this
we
is
have-
based on Painter Preservation Survey,
Yeah.
and honestly, it just got pushed off the to-do list because of busyness. So it's still on there. We still need to do it. Some of the landmarks have irretrievable loss of integrity and just need to be removed.
Go for it. Just
but
do
the
it.
board needs to do it. So
Okay,
it's
well,
just
I'll bring it anytime.
yeah, it's just honestly time and prioritization of projects.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. Okay.
So that's why I have to be determined. So let me know if you, after we've gone through all of this, some of the to be determined, let me know if some of those have higher priorities than the other, and maybe we can start attaching
list of
time,
those?
actual dates and times to them rather than
The
a
ones that are
TBD, which is just a holding.
You'll put that list together sometime, and we'll look at it. And, Yeah.
And then maybe we can, and maybe we just create a work session as the first step.
Sure.
And then that work session can turn into a
Then
land use hearing, which
you
is
can
which
pick
is
one
the
in the
official.
future and just say, this is what we're going to do on this one. And you'll have it ready to go
Yeah.
whenever you want.
That's what happened last time, and it's still here. So you're right. And maybe that's it. Maybe just a work session to go over all the structures. Because at the end of the day, the property owners need to sign, and they'd probably be happy to sign. But just tracking them down and getting them to sign the de-designation land use application. It's just a lot of paperwork and time. So. But yeah, so once we're done with going through this, please let me know if there's some of these to be determined if you'd like to assign a spring, fall, summer time period for them. The fifth one I'm actually really excited about, and I wanted to work on this fall and winter, but timing didn't work. But Heritage All-Star Community is a new program created by the State Historic Preservation Office, and it totally fits into some of my goals and some of my frustration over the years. And what it's saying is an all-star community is not just a city that has a CLG program. It has the technical check boxes, and we have a code, and we do this, and we protect our historic buildings. It's more of what do we have as a community, and how do we integrate all of the historic resources and historic organizations so we are moving together in one step and not duplicating efforts or not talking to each other. Also, an all-star community is a community that's well integrated and collaborates to create projects that enhance the city and preservation and heritage. So if you click on that link, it's an application submittal criteria, and you have to. There's like 20 something, and you have to meet 16 out of the 20. And I looked through all of them, and we really can make findings for all of them. I don't. It's not necessarily going to be hard to meet the requirements. It's more of working with other organizations to apply together, because I could fill the whole thing out and turn it in, but that doesn't really meet the spirit of the application, which is saying that we are a community with numerous preservation and heritage groups that work together. So one thing we could do as a Historic Review Board is take this on as a way to collaborate. And the end result is the fact that we get listed, but it's kind of the process of applying and having multiple groups help with the application so they kind of get ownership, and we can work on coordinating better with other heritage groups. So that's one option. And that kind of, I'm pushing for it because I think it fits my overall goals of us to rise above a regulatory review group.
Maybe we can
and
get
it's-
T-shirts too.
we can get T-shirts, and we get a sign, and we'll get, I'm sure, a plaque from the state. And also, I think what it does, and this is more important, a lot like getting a Main Street designation, if you're a Heritage All-Star, you get kind of extra points when you apply for state grants. It's like you get recognized,
That's
and so
right,
it's just
All-Stars.
another thing in our feather in our cap. We're Preserve America community, we're a Heritage All-Star. Whenever we, even if it's like a trails grant from state parks, it's not necessarily preservation related. The idea is having this helps in your for other state agencies that you are a coordinating group.
Excellent.
So the one opportunity we could look at: do we want to partner with Clackamas County Historical Society? Having other, do we want to work with the Chamber of Commerce? There's different. The idea is kind of all together. What groups do we want to work with? And we could be the sponsoring group if we wanted to do that. So, and the nomination is actually pretty easy to put together, but
Got it.
it needs to be more than just me filling it out, because that really wouldn't fulfill the spirit of the process. So, all right.
Gonna move along.
Number 6. This is kind of going to be, I think, the new Ermitinger house
For years and years.
for years and years and years. So I think just always having an update of what's going on there as we move forward. Just kind of keeping you informed. We're there may be different places where the Historic Review Board as a kind of heritage preservation stakeholder group can be plugged in and when your voice makes sense to be heard. So I just want to make sure that you're keyed in so you know where it is in the process.
Will you be updating us by email?
No, I think it's just more of a lot like at a meeting. We'll just have it as a standing item, like where are
Like
we?
Irma Tinger was.
Yeah, whenever there's anything new, I'm there to let
Yeah.
you know what's going on.
Okay, cool.
I don't have anything exactly new, but this spring there will be more to talk about. So it's soon. Number 7 was something I really wanted to get done this summer, but didn't happen. And this is really the revising the city's website, but it's also, and I didn't add it on here, it's also implementing the survey data that we received for the citywide survey, all that 1,500, 1,600 properties, and getting it plugged into our GIS.
So it hasn't even been
It's
uploaded?
in there, but I mean, it hasn't been put in a theme yet. There's still some tweaks I'm working on with Chris Dunlap with GIS. It's just been put on hold. But our goal is to have a separate app, and that hasn't been done yet. So that's actually should be included in number 7, is to also work on revising the just generally our website. Can we be more user friendly with our preservation aspect of our website, and then how do we get this survey data to the public so it can be utilized? Number 8 is Painter Preservation had some recommendations for a historic overlay code rewrite. I don't know when we're going to be doing the next code revisions, so it's not going to be anytime soon. And because this is into a land use code, we have a Measure 56 notice, and so the requirements for noticing on a code change on their own outside of our general code update is a little burdensome, so I don't see this happening outside of that process. But I'm just keeping it on there to know that when we do, next time we do a citywide code revision, I think it's time for us to do a formal review to see if there's anything we want to do to our code, because she had some recommendations. Number 9, I know Cindy Toll had a recommendation about that, is doing something in regards to window repair specialists and learning more about windows. Or no, maybe there's a sash limiter. Was it that?
The sash
Yeah,
limiter.
yeah.
That needs to be like out there and real prevalent information when people go to remodel their houses or build new ones or any of that.
Okay, that is different than what we do is more learning about window repair, or also learning more about, one thing to add, I feel like I'm never going to up to date with what's going on with fiberglass windows and the design of fiberglass windows.
But you
I
know
would
what?
like to learn more, but I don't know quite the best way to find out what the different ranges of the quality of fiberglass and the technology.
That brings up a point, though. Like, if you're going to repair your windows, and you have upstairs windows, and they're low, like, and they fall into that category that might require sash limiters, do we want to bring that into the window repair?
That really only comes under it
advice?
when
It's new
you have
windows.
a permit.
Yeah, permitted, but still, I don't know. Maybe it might help to just like let them, as an information only thing, to let them know that they're available, that they're out there.
Yeah, that's something we can do. I mean, we could add it to the, we could do a one page and I could put it on the window
Just as an information only
page.
thing.
And those
Yeah.
little one page PDFs are great, because when people are on the phone, I can get their email and I just send them emails with
With a
like
link
3 or 4 links,
or-
and then they got the information I needed. It took, a minute of my time, and I didn't have to take 25 minutes to print off something and mail it to them. So I mean, what do you feel in regards to fiberglass windows? I mean, especially after the last project with Mr. Ettinger, seeing that fiberglass window and thinking from standing on the street, thinking that he put a vinyl window in, and then seeing the spec that it was a fiberglass window really surprised me.
It has to do with the manufacturer.
That's right.
Right, but I feel like as a policy level, at least I feel like I need to learn more
Well,
about what we
there's-
need to do to do conditions.
There's fiberglass windows that are essentially vinyl windows. You just paint them. And there's fiberglass or aluminum clad, and they generally have a different profile.
Maybe you could spec out the profile.
But like those guys, they may have just got fiberglass windows, not fiberglass wood windows, because they're cheaper.
Right.
And they didn't care about the profile.
And there's even fiberglass windows that have a deeper profile.
Again, it's manufacturers.
It depends on
And
Right,
They
it-
probably pick the cheapest
And it may
guys.
be that we need to identify or ask when it's being submitted what the profile is or a copy of that profile, because the manufacturer has those listed on the website. It's very easy to obtain.
Yeah.
What do you mean by profile?
They
So
have different
if you-
reveals, different depths, right? So some look
they
like
don't
vinyl.
look-
Yeah,
If you take a window, cut through it, and then look down,
right.
that's what you would see is the profile.
Like a
with the-
cross-section?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But I mean, I almost feel like I kind of want, maybe it's just me, but I kind of almost want to have someone come and bring their windows. You know, almost
They've
like
done that.
no, like,
They've
or
done
even not the applicant, but like someone, like even a window
supplier?
salesperson,
For instance?
distributor,
I
to
don't
like
think we could do
give
that.
their line and be like,
can't?
this
I
is
don't-
their line.
I don't think we'd be
You don't
allowed
think
to
you
do that.
Oh, no. Out as a work session item, not a land use.
As an information for
As
us.
an information? Or is it, do you feel that would help?
I just don't know if it's legally, even in a work session, you can do that.
Yeah, you can,
It's-
yeah, it's because we're just talking policy of what.
You could.
Yeah. We're just talking, this is a policy of what products out
Yeah,
there. It's
'cause you don't wanna look like
informational.
We're not
Favorite.
selecting
Yeah,
a
that's
vendor.
what
No, we're just
I don't
seeing
think
like
that's what you mean.
what's out there. What are your
Possibilities, alternatives.
Yeah.
I've sat through quite a few of those discussions. They're lengthy. It tends to be a
At Woodville
Say this is a
Windows
sales job.
on Circle Point Road, we have one of the premier manufacturers of real wood windows right in Oregon City boundaries. And he is doing it for all of the major places all over the city, Oregon City, Astoria, Portland. And he's considered to be one of the foremost manufacturers in Oregon City. And you could go up there sometime on a work session type of thing and see what he's doing and why and what people are asking him for.
Yeah.
All over and see the quality of it, because
that's
Yeah,
great.
but we're talking about
discussing
alternatives.
We're
to
talking
wood.
alternatives to wood windows because, truth be told, probably 90% of the people that come through here do not want wood windows. They're
They
looking
can't
for
afford 'em.
alternatives.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a high-end product. That's probably a beautiful window and a
well, he makes all sorts of
right. And most people are coming. They're looking to get fiberglass or aluminum because they're a lot less expensive. So we have to look. There's so many different profiles.
in a historic, if they're in a historic building and stuff like this, this is, all I would say, without prejudging, sometime you ought to take a moment.
Oh, sure.
Right. I think we're talking about new construction,
Yeah.
not related to
Yeah,
historic
yeah,
structures.
that's right.
Yeah, I
So-
mean this is new construction infill questions.
I really don't think.
I'd like to ask something. Paul came over and said that there's someone wanting to build a house right next to me. I live in Kenema. I don't see anybody
Right, that-
here.
We're doing that
So
at
we're
7
7
o'clock.
We're at 7.
We're-
7 o'clock. Oh,
Yeah.
we're at a work
Stay
session.
home
We're
on
discussing.
Yeah.
We can sit here and listen to this delightful
Yeah.
discussion.
Oh, I never go to these meetings.
Well, stick around and you can fall asleep eventually.
Yeah, I'd rather
So-
be doing that at home.
Yeah, that's not till 7. Sorry.
7.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so 10. We can move on. We know what
Yeah.
we got to do. We need to have what you just said. If we can do it, that's fantastic.
But I don't know if I'm the only one who feel like they need to do that. I don't know.
I definitely need to have that.
Well, I think it would be educational to constantly be updated on, because there's new product coming out all the time, and sometimes you're not aware of certain things, and if one of us gets a kind of an update on some product, I mean, we can
Yeah.
can we share it? Like by email?
No, it's better to do it. I mean, you could do it to me, but it's better for everything to
Or
be
like
done.
to say to you,
In the meeting.
this is
Yeah.
a new product that we should look at?
Yeah, I mean, as a policy, we are choosing to approve
Just in case somebody decides
fiberglass
to use
windows
that
that
product.
have the reveal and depth that are closer to wood windows as an acceptable new construction
Right.
material.
Right.
But I think we need to work more on how we best portray that when we do conditions of approval. And
Oh, yeah,
I
instead
don't
of-
feel like I'm there yet, where
Yeah,
I can
'cause
say,
the
where I
more-
can clearly say, yeah, that one's not going to work, that one's going to work.
Right, and the more informed we are, the better decisions we
Mm-hmm.
can make.
You know, I did an addition last year on a 100-year-old house,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a product that matched those old windows that were fiberglass wood-clad
Mm-hmm.
windows. And you look at them, and they look 100 years old.
You can't tell.
You really can't
Yeah.
tell.
And
It's
that's-
pretty cool.
To me,
But we
that's,
paid a little more
that's
for
the
it.
criteria we have to meet.
They're made
Right,
here.
and
No
the
guards.
problem is with that, then you basically saying you have to bring this back in for the
That's
board to
right.
approve that night. And that could be something we
Yeah.
could choose that's the policy.
I
we
It,
want
it
to-
I
should
think
be
it's-
that way.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And
And perhaps at a staff level, when someone approaches you with an application, we ask for materials already. Just say the board is going to want to see what the profile of that window
and you
is.
have
so
you have to
bring
go
that
check
specific
out the
manufacturer.
actual spec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or, you know, people
Oh,
have brought in
we have
siding
some-
product before. They can bring, and they brought in windows before. They can bring
Yeah,
their
and I've
profile.
seen the ones where it's
Yep.
the triangle one. It's not the.
Yep.
And so, after that, and then the construction is done, and the windows get put in, and the inspector, does he report back to the HRB?
No, I
Yeah,
go
you-
out and final
she
it.
signs
You
off.
Yeah,
go
I-
out.
I
That's
look at-
right.
I go
Okay.
out and I have the conditions of approval for
Okay.
for
construction.
story, and I go out and I'm looking through all of them. And because we've been so vague with fiberglass, I felt, especially Mr. Edinger,
Oh, yeah.
he met it. I mean, we did not do a very good job with how
No,
we
he took the bare minimum.
right, and so the onus was on us to, me to write better conditions for that.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't not give him a certificate of occupancy because those were fiberglass windows.
So in our directions and guidelines now, do we have any requests for the specs on these windows or the profile or whatever
we get them a little bit sometimes when they're turned in, but and maybe that's it. Maybe we just say you cannot. I mean, this is where I can talk to our attorney. Like, what's the best way to get things to the point where we're not holding no application up, or maybe it's just a flat-out policy that we have it written out as a one-pager. If you're going to use a non-wood window, this is the policy.
I agree. I think
This is
that's
what you
right.
need to bring. I don't know to think it through, but that might be helpful. That we
Yeah.
just people know what they need to do and
Yeah, I
what they
do.
need to bring, and that's our.
So there's no
additional-
confusion, there's no ambiguity.
Exactly.
Right, and then that's something we could adopt as an addendum, and
Sure.
it's a policy, and we can move forward with that. So
Cool. Okay.
okay.
Let's rock and roll.
Oh, I think 10 is the sash limiter issue. Now that I
Oh, with the building
now that I
code, because it
think
goes
about
to
yeah.
the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. we covered
11 Ermitinger House continues.
Same old, same
Same
old.
old, same old.
That was in the 1859 magazine.
Did they do a good job? I haven't read it yet.
It's just the one thing of the 3 or 4 most endangered things. That.
Really?
Something in Eugene, I think. But yeah, it was in this month's 1859.
It's a never-ending story.
Yeah. Well, we're moving forward. We have our final draft. We have our final documents from MyFODI.
And it
Great
made it through the
product.
winter almost.
What?
It made it through the winter
Right through
almost.
it. No, I'm excited. We have our sort of our CBG money grant from the state, from the county. I'm looking forward. We don't have all the money for the budget, but the momentum is there. I'm excited. And then the last one, policy discussions. Previously, we had some that we kind of were checking off. I haven't heard of any new ones, so you don't have to bring them up tonight. But it's one of those where if you do see, if through the course of the year, a policy question comes up, and maybe that's it. We talked about with try to articulate it. If there's a consensus, we could add it to a work session agenda. And I think we did this. If you remember, we did a infill, new construction, commercial infill policy discussion about a year or two ago. So we spent the night on it. We did a PowerPoint. We talked it through, and then we figured out if we wanted to do any more amendments to our code or how we saw that. So, or if that was something we wanted to pursue. So that's kind of how I see issues that maybe a land use application brings up, and it's, after something's done, you realize something's percolating here, we can take it as a work session that's not related to the particular land use, but might affect future land uses, and we can make a policy work session on it. So kind of reserve 12 as that to be determined.
Okay.
So if we have anything that we think might want to put on that to discuss, can we just give it to you and you can decide
Well, no, it would be a consensus. I mean, you can give it to me, and then it could be a consensus of the board.
whether it should be on
Yeah.
there or not? Okay, so just give it to everybody?
Well, if you want to talk about tonight, or we always over email, the best is to give things to me rather than.
All right.
Don't talk over email. Don't talk over email.
Becomes a meeting.
Talk to me. Yes, absolutely. And then you could bring it up at a meeting. Like we have communications, and we have. That's also a time to do it. At our work sessions. Anytime that you.
Okay, but not tonight.
Oh, you can if you want to.
But we're not talking about policy issues tonight.
No, but if you want to add an item.
Okay, let's add the porte-cochere
Okay.
and the carport.
Or
Situation.
attached garages, carport. That discussion.
Yeah, let's add that. That's my.
Super.
For tonight?
Is
No,
the
no, no.
Is there a consensus that can be a work session item?
I guess.
I need one more for a consensus for a work session item.
Oh, if you're looking for consensus, I don't know.
Oh, I just
Who so far do you have?
Me and
Sit-
John.
Oh,
I just need a majority of the board willing to move forward on a work session item.
I just want to discuss them. I just want to talk about this.
moving this.
I'm not
direction.
interested.
I'm not either. It's probably not going to really happen again. If it does, then we deal with it.
See, I don't agree. It's already happening in secret. That's
It
what
is?
that's what those pictures were about.
Oh, yeah, those. Okay.
They are
Those are horrible.
I mean, that's what's happening. People are just whacking them up there.
Yeah, and they're also
for
parking
necessity.
trailers out front and
That's
living
well,
in those
that's
too.
not attached to their house though.
Porte-cochere is also different than a carport, and that's what we had a lot of pictures of.
Yeah, those are all
Yes,
carports.
in essence it is, but then sometimes there's two different senses of it, and one of them says that they call them carports. So
Those pictures were carports.
What would you like to see as an outcome?
what I would like to see is that we are, especially on new construction, is that we allow for something that makes the person who lives in the house more comfortable, a more livable situation. Don't be so strict about certain things like porte-cocheres, which is infinitely better than a carport, which was my point in taking those pictures, because it serves a useful purpose. It allows the person to come into the house without getting drenched in this weather up here. And my feeling is that we demolished so many houses and put so many structures away before we took pictures of them and saw what they were, that I think that we had more than one porte-cochere in this city, and I think that they will add to livability, and they will add to they were part of the era. Just because we had more in Portland than we did in Oregon City doesn't mean that we didn't have them in Oregon City.
So your comment was that something like a porte-cochere, which is assuming that it's architecturally appropriate and massed appropriately, could be used as
Part of new
as
construction.
part of new construction.
Yes.
Do we have any policies that address that issue now?
Well, not in the specific sense, but we looked at the design guidelines go back to the spirit of it, which is look at the buildings in your neighborhood as the base that you're going to design around, which I think was a real important part of our design guidelines. You can't just grab a house plan and try to make it fit. You start by looking at the blocks around you and the houses around you and the character of your district and design from that. So that's true. And then, but this is that perfect gray
Yeah.
example in the middle. So we can absolutely, the thing is, it's not just the porte-cochere. I mean, we can maybe
If
talk
it's
more about.
tastefully done, I mean, you can't just say, okay,
Well,
we're just going to put a porte-cochere on
Well,
don't- I
we
just
talk
want-
about it another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's break at this
Well,
point.
that was why I brought it up, so we could talk about it some other time.
Okay.
Can we put it on the agenda? Guys?
I'll tell you what, if you want to find something that's more cohesive than those pictures or give some sort of better examples and create some sort of a presentation in a work session, go for
The
it.
pictures, all they
But
did
I-
was illustrate a need. People need this kind of thing. So they're whacking up things on their houses because they need that. That was my
They need
point.
guidance, you're saying.
They need some kind of shelter to get, out of the rain.
Well, I think John's point is right, and that is, I mean, there's two options here. One is we can tie it down in a policy and say this fits and that doesn't fit. Or we have some general policies that cover the discussion, and we have that discussion anytime it arises amongst ourselves before we approve or don't approve something. I mean, that's our two options. And
Yeah.
I tend not to want to nail things down too hard in policy because it gives us less flexibility.
Well, we do have one precedent of a porta cachet, and now with this new construction, we're going to have two
Can I-
precedences.
Can I remind everyone that this isn't actually a discussion item, and it hasn't been voted on for a future discussion item? So let's postpone it until
Thank
it
you.
is.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Let's
So,
call it. Let's begin.
anything, just as a confirmation, do I need to, other than what you told me, do I need to address anything different? Because the goal is to adopt this next month. So is there anything different you would like
No.
to see timing-wise?
This is all great.
Do we need to set a timeline for number 4 before we adopt it?
How about a work session by the end of the summer? Would that
Yeah,
work for you?
do that because
Okay.
maybe in the dead or
Because I will be quite busy this
There's
spring.
also
but-
number
it would
8
be
that's
nice
got
to
a
have that
change.
list, have what those are,
Yeah.
pictures, all
And
that.
before the work session.
before the
Right,
work
right.
session.
We'll talk, but it won't be then we'll have to finish it by doing an actual land use application. Okay.
Can you approve demolition by
Water heater situation.
Thank you, sister.
That guy was really helpful.
It's been,
Oh, good. Stand the water heater, man.
Yeah,
yeah, there's a couple of these lots.
All
in
you have to
FEMA
do is
that's
make sure that
owned by
those
the property
sensors
owner,
are
the satellite.
past a certain point.
We're going to get started here on our latter half of our good times on Tuesday night. Okay, so we're going to go with, I guess there's not any public comments probably. So we're going to, no. Go ahead.
If you want to go from the,
Go ahead, state your name and your address.
Yes, Paul Edgar, Oregon City, Kanema. I'd like to have included in your goals document demolition by neglect
Neglect.
as something that's of importance that we need to keep in front of you on a regular basis. Reviewing the status of any of these buildings, like we do have one in Kanema, and they will surely come up other places, but it's one of the city ordinances, and it should be tracked on a regular basis, and I would hope you would include it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Did you hear that? Okay. Okay, so are you gonna give us a presentation, or what are we gonna do with
yeah,
advice?
I will. Oh, actually, just real quickly, do I have a consensus from the board that if I put that in a policy, if I did do demolition by neglect, what I see is doing is making a presentation of the code, how we've done it so far, and then policy directions. We could take 20 minutes, half hour, kind of go through
15 minutes.
the code, how it's been done, how we want to do it in the future. So, I can add that as a policy discussion work session.
Yeah, we haven't done it for a few years.
Yeah. I'd be happy to do it add it to the list.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. We have tonight is a design advice, and to remind the board and anybody and the greater audience out there on the internet what design advice is. It's a way for property owners, future applicants, to request non-binding advice back from the Historic Review Board based on submitted information. So it's free. The applicants turn in whatever they feel like they have information on a week before I have a scheduled meeting. And what I try to let the applicants know that the more information you provide, the more quality feedback you will get. So the Historic Review Board is not bound to give any advice back. It's individual. It's non-binding. What I do is the record of this video is then entered into the record of any future land use application. So if the gentleman tonight comes back, HR 1302, the first night of that meeting, we'll enter in the minutes of this meeting tonight into the record. And so it's continued. But what the goal, I think, with this is property owners who aren't too sure if they want to buy something or they have a plan that they're kind of wedded to before they really move forward on hiring their designer or really paying a designer to go for it rather than sketch drawings, to kind of get a little bit of feedback from the Historic Review Board. But on your end, please let the applicant know, yes, I feel like I have sufficient background to give you these couple of comments, knowing that it's not everything, or based on what you've turned in, I really can't feel like I can give you much. This is what I would really like to see. And for me to, that's the kind of information you can give back. If you feel that you can't give much back, let them know. But the idea is this is a way to kind of put your toe into the process and be supportive of infill without having people to commit to pay a designer, get all the way through the process, and find out, like, it's not meeting the design guidelines or things like that. So in this gentleman, the reason he's coming in is slope, 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 and slope. If this was a flat land, it would a little be more clean cut. I think we wouldn't as needed to come here. But because Kenema is such a sloped area, and some of these sites are unique, and there have been different approaches over the years to these, but you're not bound by approaches of past. And the last one actually was done before the design guidelines that we have today were adopted. So this is kind of our first sloped Kenema lot that we're reviewing with the new 2006 design standards for new infill. So I'm going to go through a little bit of what I have, and then I've added some more pictures and some more overlay. And then Bill, the applicant, will come up and you can talk to him, but I'll move over. But are you all toggled over? You can see on your screen. So this is the infill lot. It's
presentation, that's right.
I guess just east of the park, if you want to think of it that way, downhill from the Kenema Children's Park. This is a aerial, but we're kind of looking at this part. So this is the edge of kind of I think a mid-90s infill. And then this is the site we're looking at. This is looking directly at it. This is the historic house that's adjacent. So this is the site.
White House, that's 707.
Yes. Here's another view. I was just kind of Google mapping some views. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. That's fine. This is the historic house at 707 4th. The George and Martha Draper House, 1867. Though it's interesting that the footprint on the bottom of the second page of the survey doesn't, I think it'd be flipped the other direction, but I spent for a while trying to figure that one out, why the footprint looks different than, you'd think it would be this way, but it's the other way. So I'm a bit confused by that one, but. So this is what the prior property owner had put together, and I think this was presented at a previous Historic Review Board meeting, but I was trying to confirm that, and I didn't have time to verify that. But the look was having some, looks like some pavers, a retaining wall, some steps down, and then you'll see up here, this is about 166, and this comes down to about 150 contour-wise. And then I have this down and have a three-point turn. And then this would be looking at 4th Avenue. I mean, obviously it'd be a different
From
view.
4th Avenue.
Yeah. This is the rear, so you'd be looking up from 3rd at this. Oops, and I don't know. I thought there
There's
was
a
one more. Am I
side
missing
one, wasn't
Yeah.
there? With the garage?
There is, and I'm missing it.
I only saw those two elevations.
Oh, I thought there was a side one with the garage.
I guess not. So
Yeah.
I think last time we looked at this, one option was that this actually lower deck kind of becomes a little bit of a carport. So if you want to tuck a car underneath there, you could.
So it's out far enough to do that.
Don't quote me. I mean, this was a while
Deep enough.
back, but I think that was some of the idea. So Bill had some questions tonight, and the house plan appears to have a garage. And this is just from his email, so I just pasted on here. The house has a garage in the rear of the home that is attached to the house. Our attached garage is acceptable. If so, is the placement in regard to the home such as this okay? So, or this right here could be the garage part. And the I guess, here, let me go back. This is the question is, that's why I can't quite figure out of this if, it would have to be that, this is still out.
Can I sneak up next?
Yeah. I don't know if there is a attached basement, sub-basement garage, like a daylight garage, and then you have the deck past that. Which is one way to look at this.
The way I took it when I got the plans from the previous owner, or the current owner of the property, was that the driveway sloped down, did a 90-degree in and underneath the house. Whether that is truly the way it is or not, there's not enough information here to see, but as I looked at them, that's what I thought I saw.
So let's see some of the other questions. So you have the question about elevations in regards to the massing of this rear elevation. And then the neighboring property used that shallow U-shaped driveway, the two new constructions from 2007 that did the attached garages that were abutting 4th Avenue, and then part of 4th Avenue was created and built as a driveway to kind of connect them. So if you are on 4th, still within the right-of-way, but looks like a private driveway, is actually kind of this lower-leveled U driveway that comes back up to 4th, and that's all in the right-of-way, and then the garages actually are at the 0 property line. So they got pulled all the way to the front. So some question is, do you do that same thing? Do you totally reorientate this differently so you have
The garage out front.
and actually, a good example, and I didn't get it the other direction, no. Right here has that, these are some, I want to say 90s homes that are down lower, but they did the same thing. They kind of created this
Drop down.
and they have this kind of side additional parking that they've created. So there is, with Canemus, you have 60-foot right-of-ways, but you obviously have less pavement. You have kind of this extra area to work at. You can never build in it because it's in a right-of-way. And so your property line is the closest you could ever get a home. The question is there, based on where you put the house, is there ways that are more advantageous to reduce the massing? Because the biggest thing is, what can we do to reduce the massing of these homes? And now with these new design guidelines, we can deny a home that's too big. Whereas in the old design guidelines, it was much harder to deny that. Whereas I think in this realm, if you still had a house that was just too big of a massing, our design guidelines are written to the point where they can be denied, saying you still have too big of a massing. So, how do you get creative to look at, can you move things forward or have a secondary kind of looped driveway of a lower road that's still right-of-way, but it can get the homes closer? So that was one question.
Can you go that one with, that one right there.
So where are those homes that you're talking about? Or is that the roof of them down there?
No, they're farther. If I'm looking north at the river, they're going to be east of me.
Okay,
Whereas
are they
I'm going
close
down
to this
4th
house?
Avenue.
Are they-
Yeah, they're probably, maybe 4 houses east of me. Yeah, about.
Is that White House occupied?
That's the property owner.
That was the lady that was here earlier.
Oh, she lives there.
It looks like it's compost.
And you see she has little stairs that go down. She doesn't have an attached garage.
She doesn't have any garage, does she? So is the elevation going to be shored up and changed in any way?
The front elevation of the house?
Any part of it?
Oh, before you, just tell us your name and your
I'm
address.
sorry.
My name's Bill Heinz, Mountain Ridge Homes.
Okay.
Where's your address?
Yeah, where's your address?
My company address is P.O. Box 102, Boring, Oregon. I have an Escade address.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, and I can hand this over to Bill, but I think with this one, it was an interesting one in the sense that there are different ways to approach this building when you have a building on a slope. And now there's geologic hazards, there's some water resource, so all those other overlay zones are going to be dealt with. But the first threshold is this one. Not understanding if this makes sense because it's still, you're driving down and your house is lowered. So
Yeah.
you think that'd be good because you're starting at a lower point, so you're not going to get the massing. Whereas the moment you bring it closer, not understanding exactly these contours, it may make the rear of the house even steeper. So, if you can meet this, that might be helpful. There's also a sewer. I'm going to go back here. there's some sanitary sewer manholes, and then there's an easement on the property, and we'll check and see how wide, but got to work a little bit with that, so you can't push it all the way to the back.
Right now, it's going right underneath the porch.
Yeah.
That's-
So-
The sewers to the back,
Yeah.
that's a sweet deal.
So that's really nice in the sense that easy access to the existing sewer instead of having a grinder pump.
So have you purchased this property?
I don't. I've got paperwork, or it's in escrow with the title company.
Mm-hmm.
With,
So you're going through the
gathering
process.
Information.
Yeah.
So,
Chris Bernard's doing
so
that.
I'm gonna have Bill give a little explanation, but I think the goal tonight is this design is not necessarily the one he will or will not use. This is a prior design, but I think what he's trying to get is your initial feedback and concerns or direction. And of course, it's non-binding, but what he's trying to find out is, does he have clear direction about the next steps if he does want to choose to purchase it? And I think what I told him on a staff level, my biggest concern with Kenema is always massing. And to me, it's how do you reduce that massing to the extent practical that you can. And I think everything else kind of falls into place once you do that.
So those 1990 houses are they in line with your idea of?
Oh, no,
massing?
architecturally, no, but they are, you kind of have to go down into this, you drive down into a hole a little bit, so the massing gets less.
I
It's
see.
like you either are closer up here and you have massing in the back, or you're driving down kind of this steeper driveway, and then you have this lower level.
How deep is the lot?
It's 100 foot deep.
So is
And it
it,
has half of a,
50 by 100?
well, no, it's more than that, because it has half of a vacated street.
And the-
So it's actually 80 feet wide. Because 60 by 60, the other side got the other half. This section of the street was vacated years ago.
so it's 60 by 100?
It's 80 by
80 by 100, so almost a square. So are you enamored with this, or do you have something else in mind? Or are you just taking this because this was there and it's an easy one?
This is very much, for me, just so you know, very much informational. I'm trying to, there's pages and pages of paperwork with the historic area to review, and I'll need to do all that. But I wanted to kind of get a feeling for what you guys wanted. I know that there was really some key points as far as massing, to steal your terminology, size of walls, and how houses sat on the lot. So I was really trying to get a base point to start from. If I knew that a wall was over a certain height or some of those kind of calculations, it would lead me in a direction to develop a house plan. If everybody on the council were to say, boy, this is a great house, if you build this, we would approve it with no doubts, then maybe I would look hard at this house plan, but that wasn't the purpose of bringing this house plan in.
Okay. I
Well,
have
if you
some,
want to do a little.
Well, to a little background, I've built some houses in Kenema, and very nice neighborhood. I recognize your face from meeting you up there, and so we built out of the historic side on 4th Street there, or excuse me, 5th Street, with the subdivision that was put in there. So my company bought those lots. So I became familiar with the neighborhood at that point, and of course Metro down at one end, and all the work done with the park, and so it's a great neighborhood, and everything that it has to offer, the proximities and those kind of things. So am I enamored? Not with the house plan, but it's a great neighborhood. We got the view of the river, so outstanding area.
So, Bill, if you don't know if you know the Fifth Place, there was a lot that was outside the district, the historic district, but you got through the cul-de-sac of Fifth Place and popped up, and yeah, and there's
by,
4
yeah.
homes that are
Yeah, yeah.
outside, and Bill did those.
Oh, gotcha.
There's like 4 of them, 4 houses like that.
Yes, and I built 3 of them. Another individual. The subdivision was already in, and so I came in and I bought 3 of the lots, and another individual bought the 4.
That's above where we were talking about the metal roof house.
Yes.
You go
Yes,
up,
yes.
hang
You
a
pop
left,
your way
and
up-
then you
yeah,
go
that
up.
little 70s.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
outside
And
the
these
district.
houses are up on the right
Right.
in that cul-de-sac thing. Gotcha.
So totally outside district, those are just spec.
Yeah.
Current Oregon, I mean, just, you could build those anywhere in the city of Oregon.
Can you go back to the picture with the White House, please? Yeah. So how, at least with this house, how does she access her house, or is there, it almost looks like it's encircled by forest. I mean, how does she get to it? Does she park on the road and go down a trail?
She's not here. I think her access is on the other side, and I didn't.
The other side.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Other side of the house?
Yeah. You know what I can do? If we just.
I was just curious, the siding of that house on the lot and how it looks like it's down lower, but I
do believe that she does park up on the street, and there's a set of steps that she works
gets her to it.
way
Yeah.
down to the front door.
On the
So,
left-hand side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty.
but there's no
confident.
garage, nothing
I
like
don't
that.
think so.
No, they actually
Is there
show a
there?
garage on this tax lot for the 1983 map, and it's. Or they showed a small outbuilding that they've. If you look at the map, I'm going to see if we can do Google Maps. But if you look back to the 83 survey forms, you see the building, and then you see like this other small accessory building that's highlighted that seems to me that's associated with this, but it no longer exists today.
Derek, go ahead.
She built another building right next to it.
Mm.
So there's currently probably about an 8x8 or 8x10 building right next to it right now.
Got it. Bill, what size of house are you thinking to build, square footage wise?
My guess would be right around a 2,000, 2,200 square foot.
Yeah, no driveway.
Nothing
she just parks there.
overly large.
Parks on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Finds her way through the forest.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there where the garbage can is, I think, are the steps.
I think right by her car there's a
there they
pathway.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So she's down a ways off the road.
So I've prepared a few thoughts. Regarding the garage, question number one, if you wanted a attached garage, I think down in the basement, if you were to actually go to the back of the property and in, that'd be appropriate.
Thanks.
There are plenty of examples in Oregon City. They're primarily on uphill lots, or where you pull into a basement garage and it is attached, or either attached directly or underground. They're typically single car. Just FYI, if you want to do a detached garage up towards the street, I also think that would be appropriate. An attached garage facing the streets, I don't think would get approved. Just FYI. Number two, regarding the elevations, it's a slope site, and that's tough to work with. Determining heights and different things. The municipal code describes specifically what that height will be based on. I want to say there's a 25 or 35 foot limit. I can't remember off the top of my
Right,
head.
but it's measured from for the front elevation,
Front
not for the
elevation,
rear
right.
elevation.
But the Kenema District limits you to a story and a half, and that is on page 27 of those guidelines.
Okay.
So as long as you're a story and a half in the front, you're going to have a lot of extra height on the back just because of the topography, and that's fine. And it does give a little snippet saying 1.5 stories plus basement. Just for your info. Number three, regarding the driveway, I'm kind of on the fence. If planning is open to talking about it, I would be open to talking about it. I'm not sure that that's historic. I'm not sure that's not. When you actually come in with the full submission, we take a look at that. So, but going straight back with the hammerhead turn back there, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just the U-shaped driveway I can't comment on right now. I don't know. Number four, retaining walls, rockery or stone would be preferred. There's other materials that are also approved in the guidelines.
But not fake stone.
Not fake stone.
Not for retaining.
No plastic.
Where was that? I believe that's page 62, and I would recommend 4 feet or less. 4 feet, you don't have to have engineered, and you might have to do 1 or 2 varying heights, but it's not
Terraced.
just
Yeah.
terrace it, but it's not one big wall. We'd kind of look at that. And number 5. Oh, she already said you're in the geological hazard area. I wanted to mention that to you. Setbacks. Right now, I think it's up for discussion. About halfway through your house, it levels out a little bit, or the proposed design that we were given, it levels out just a little bit. The slope decreases and then drops down again. So it kind of does down, levels out a little bit, then down. So moving it towards the street practically makes sense. I think historically, lining it up with 707, there's also an argument for that. So if that is closer than what you're currently
I wonder about that.
proposing, I think that makes sense. Absolutely. If 707 is behind you and you're looking for a variance, well then let's chat about the porch and other things like that. So those are my thoughts. Do you have any questions though?
You blew through those very quickly, and so that great answers. Just repeating, because again, one of the big ones that I saw is it sounds like we're limited to 1.5 stories for the front of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm just throwing out examples. If the back of the building happened to be 3 stories tall,
3?
well, I'm only asking a question.
If it's
I
a story
just-
and a half, it allows
So
for a
it's 2.5.
basement. It can be daylight basement as well, correct?
Yeah, so I guess the key is if you have this daylight basement below, how are you mitigating the inherent massing of that through architecture or placing on the site or?
I think it's
How
site
are you
placement and
reducing it?
mitigation through, I hate to say it, but a little landscaping, even though the view's out the back, but landscaping can soften that from the lower part.
Yeah. If the landscaping cuts out the bottom 6 feet of that foundation, considering the back maybe 15 feet tall.
Which was
then that
really
helps
one
with
of the
that.
reasons why retaining walls kind of came into, again, as we are talking about elevations and how things are, if retaining walls can create more or less a raised area in the back of the house, it might
Yeah.
somewhat give the illusion that the house is not as tall as it comes out in steps and
And
steps.
I think you got it, because the 2 homes that were done in '06, I think the problem that makes them just not appropriate is the drop is so fast that why it may be 1.5 in the front, by the you turn the corner and it drops, so you get a whole side elevation where you get the full basement. So there's no gradual.
Well, and the
Yeah.
fact
Change.
that you can see them over in West Lynn
Yeah.
tells you that there's
Yeah. There's a, and those are much steeper than this. This is a bit less steep, but it's not dramatically different. But
Is that 1.5 stories from the highest elevation of the lot or from the front of the house? You mentioned the front of the
from the
house.
front of the house.
From the front of the house.
So where this
So-
sits at
Right.
has a lot to do with what it does.
yeah, so if you have this steep cliff of a site, even though it may be 1.5 stories in the front, your side elevation becomes, really 3 stories or
Right.
2.5 stories all the way around, and then you get a massive issue, which is different than a slightly sloped. So you might be 1.5 in the front, and the side gets bigger, bigger, bigger till the end. You're at that full basement, but it's not a full.
Yeah, but I will say, if you look at North McLaughlin area, that issue runs in all the time. And you don't see it so much because you're at the front side, and it's all facing the canyon. But there are a lot of daylit basements back there that are just huge. Just huge.
North McLaughlin, you mean?
The McLaughlin neighborhood on the north side. Where
Right, and that's kind of the thing with our design guidelines is you really have to look Kenema versus McLaughlin. You're right.
Yeah,
McLaughlin
but it
historically.
happens here. I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out that,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's common to that area.
So
This house that we're looking at right here, would it be considered a 3-story house? Or, I mean, as we look at it, we can tell that from the rear elevation, that you can see the basement and where it even comes down a little bit. You
It
can
would be
see the
considered-
top story.
It's a story and a half.
1.5 of the basement.
Yeah.
Story and a half of
Okay.
basement.
Okay.
yeah, but
That
I think
answers
that
my
I
question.
think what happens is when you get the full basement, and then you still get this 4-foot crawl space under a full basement. And that's where, when you have these really steep, is you pretty much,
Go to the first one.
you pretty much say, like,
Okay.
you got to really worry that you are at grade by the time you get to your daylight basement. Because you don't want these crawl spaces still underneath that daylight basement.
Well,
'cause
yeah,
that
that's what I'm looking at.
starts
Is
to build
could,
up.
could the other thing is I'm looking at it and I'm just for kicks and giggles. The pitch of the roof is really steep, and I know on an old house roofs were steeper. This is something. I mean, to maybe the massing thing, and it's just I'm just thinking out loud. You could bring that pitch down. You could even stick a shed dormer somewhere on it if you bring that pitch down. But I don't know the look you're going for. But you could do that. You could bring that pitch lower to bring the massing down, because a lot of this massing's in the roof. This looks like it's a
Probably 14, 12.
14 or something. You could bring this down to a 10 or something, and maybe even have just a shed dormer off one side or something to get some space.
If you're going with a bungalow design. So, right, it depends if you're doing more of a vernacular, then...
Vernacular wouldn't have anything, but I don't think they'd have...
It doesn't look like you're going to have a lot of room upstairs.
I think your spring point on this roof could be higher. It looks pretty low to me. 812 is the minimum in the neighborhood. 1012 is encouraged.
Yeah, this is steep. And then, I look at the front, and I'm still trying to picture this house is down low, which is a benefit. If I was doing the front porch on this, I've been up in Northeast quite a bit last week or so, up in your neighborhood, and I've been looking at houses, and houses, some of these have porches like this, some have a hip to them that come over, so they soften that front porch so it doesn't look like it's a shed out front. But I've been when I saw this, I started looking more at houses and front porches, and so there's things you can do to kind of mitigate that massing of
Harshness of it.
or portions of this big porch. Maybe it's a little shorter. Maybe in the front you have a little gable on the front to soften it. Right at the entry it comes up to a gable, and then you have a couple of alleys, something like that. I know this is the cheapest way to go, but even doing it on a hip from either end would help. But I think even bringing that pitch down a little bit would help and would save money. And then, the windows on the first level look kind of too modern-y.
Because there's a slider, you can't do sliders.
Yeah, they look
Just have to
kind
redesign
of
to
goofy. I'd
appropriate.
probably pull the upper windows closer together a little bit and made sure they're 3050s that meet egress. And then you could probably bring, you could vault that. If you bring that roof down a little bit, you can vault it.
It looks like they're proposing a scissor truss right now.
Yeah,
If you
something
need-
tight in there.
If you need to get that extra room, you could stick frame it, though scissor trusses are less expensive.
Yeah, and you could still bring that pitch down and still get a scissor truss out.
Definitely,
for sure.
definitely. I think that's a good idea.
And the windows in the back you can probably soften so it doesn't look like a party house on the lake or something.
Yeah, that porch is a little strange.
Put the keg right there on the right-hand side.
It's those windows along
Yeah.
that porch, too. Those need to be...
If you brought that main pitch down and a little lower so it's in harmony with the side piece coming out, that would help. And I like the idea of people like garages. I don't know that they would mind if having the garage down below,
No, I don't think so either.
unless you're looking to rob space. But in an 2,000 square foot house, you can get that on those first two levels. Downstairs would just be a bonus, right?
Putting the garage underneath is great, as long as I can manage and have a nice functioning driveway to
Yeah.
get there. There's a couple of driveways in the neighborhood that look a little spooky, and so I would want to.
Yeah, I just wonder though if you put like those other ones where the garage is out front, and they can park there, and then you've got a long walk to the house or down to the house.
I think you need a porte-cochere.
I'd if it was me, well, in my house I have reverse living. I'd pull in main level, but our main level's upstairs and then living, so I'm used to stairs. But I think if somebody saw this and they saw the appeal of the house, you put a garage up front, it kind of kills it. I think you've got to put a foundation in. You've got to excavate anyway. It's already there. That's how I look at it. Integrated in, and it saves money. And it would look better as the house, especially with the White House next door. Even though that looks like it's composting and being overrun, it's a small house, and it's not getting disturbed by some big thing out front.
Yeah.
And it's a cost thing.
And as you're balancing your cut and fill, I think as you go into the hillside for that basement area, you can shovel that out towards the back and fill the back of your side up a little bit. If you have a little bit of retaining wall back there, and then come up from that point, it'll help to soften the massing on the backside, and also be able to.
Which you said. And the other thing is, if you do that, there's no hauling off, there's no excavation. You got to pull up the hill. You just pull it back, do the retaining wall like you're talking about, and then on that retaining wall, I'd be putting plantings that soften the back.
Oh, I mean back here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know where my finger is. Sorry, I mean back here.
I don't want to know where that is.
Yeah, we're not asking either.
That's what I would do, because it saves you a lot of money. People see the house, they think it's kind of cool. Yeah, I get what you're saying with the driveway. But again, you could also bring the house in a little more.
If you want to see spooky driveways, come look at my house. You can't do anything that's worse than that. So,
But I think you could do this and have it, because the other thing is if you shrink it just a little bit this way, a couple feet or whatever, it'll be as it won't be sticking out as much, especially next to the next door house that's small. So you don't have this kapow.
overwhelm that little house.
Yeah. Right now, the house is a rectangle with a porch attached to the back half, or the back side. And if you think of it more of cutting a piece out of that house and interjecting the deck there, that would make sense for a house like that. Now, I'm not saying you have to cut out square footage. I'm just saying think about that in the form of the massing, how that works. So that way some of your living space is
No,
pushed
this is
out
new,
to get
yeah.
the view, not just through a deck. Either one would work, but something to think about.
How wide is this, do you think?
Well, I think it's 45 foot wide based
With
on
that-
the plans.
With the
45
piece
foot
coming
wide?
out this way,
And a driveway on one side.
and it's 45 feet wide?
I think the entire house width-wise is 45 from its at its widest point.
Okay.
That makes sense, because this is about a 50-foot.
Boy, I'd
45
be
to 50 feet.
knocking that thing down narrower. Big time.
A question, Cindy, if you mentioned a porte cochere. Is something
Oh, I didn't
like
mean to.
Oh, were you in the room then?
There's some philosophical discussions about
No, that was
okay,
just a
because
joke.
that was
a
something
joke.
that, and unfortunately, my home designer is unable to be here tonight. But it was a conversation that we had. But that sounds like that's probably not a conversation that needs to go any further at this time. Is that
This will be easier if you don't bring that into the conversation.
fair enough?
I'd narrow
Those are
the
the kind of
house.
things I want to know.
I would narrow the house and put the garage underneath, and I would do something with the front porch, and
Yep.
and I would do, as you said, a retaining wall in the back, a rock wall, and take all that fill and push it back, and plantings. And that saves you money, and reduce the pitch of the roof. All those things save you money.
Yeah.
I think the appeal of the house, if you do it right, and if you put a big enough garage down below, I think people would be fine with it.
How does reduced pitch save the money? How does that?
But that's
Does it
just
save money?
10 cents worth.
The,
It doesn't.
because
Well,
it's
you
in
have
two
less
overlay
roofing.
districts,
You have less material.
natural resource, because there's a wetland lower below.
How far? Is it going to be affected if he puts fill in? If it's less than 50 yards, he doesn't need a
Right.
permit, and he doesn't need to do
No,
it.
but I, based on my knowledge of where that stream and wetland is, I think we have an incorrect mapping. So I'm hoping that's the correct answer, and this will be an exemption.
It
So-
really wouldn't matter anyway.
Right. So if it is what I think, which is our overlay, we have a generous overlay, bigger than what the reality is, because we have to pull in. So I'm hoping, based on what I think, this is an exemption. So that I think the whole site is out. But if it isn't, then there's going to be some mitigation. The second thing is the geologic hazards, and this is where it gets a little complicated, is the applicant's going to have to really coordinate with his geotech and his engineer to make sure that the design that's involving, this type of retaining wall or this, because what we can't have is going through historic review board and then going through the geo review and the engineer saying, well, I'm going to need this type of retaining wall in order to do this, and then realizing that the board didn't review that and having to go back. So it's just that conversation to make sure that the geotech and the engineer understand kind of what the board requirements are, and that's woven at the very beginning of the process.
Okay.
Narrow it up. Narrow up the house. You know, doesn't need to be 45 feet.
So,
Make it smaller. You still get the square footage out of it. It's going to make life easy for everything. And as long as, in the back, as long as you put any kind of retaining and you do less than 50 yards, you don't need a permit for it.
well, he will because he's in the geohazard overlay. So,
Well, that blows.
well, it may not. But,
Is that,
and there's also the sewer line. So that may be a great solution, but I want to talk to our building.
but it depends on where that goes,
Yeah.
too.
Maybe
you know,
all fine, but I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm not a geotechnical.
But I'm saying here's some ideas
Anytime your slope exceeds
that are mitigated in that.
So,
You
Yeah.
can, think about
yeah,
5 truckloads of
And
dirt.
there's
I don't
a
think you
lot
can
of-
excavate that out of
That's
this
all
thing.
flat, so-
Maybe,
right.
but
Maybe that's what
put it in the bag.
Spring.
Just do it on the weekend.
Designating.
John.
I know, that's horrible. I'm teasing.
Too, so that probably is right.
Strike that.
So, does anybody have any other comments for Bill?
No. Where'd my...
Oh, I usually have a lot to say about lighting.
The what? I'm sorry.
Lighting.
Uh-huh.
So when you submit cut sheets of the lighting that you have,
Doors, windows,
doors, your materials,
all the materials.
90%
Siding.
of the time, we would like to approve what you're doing. I just want to see it.
Yeah.
So
And the other thing is, it's all about how we can work to make it work for you instead
Yeah.
of being a roadblock. It's
we don't
not
wanna be a
about,
roadblock.
The more information we have, the easier it is.
Right.
yeah.
So if I am lucky enough to sit in front of you a month from now with a set of plans at
Lucky.
that meeting, do I have lights and doors and everything at that meeting? Or do I
Everything.
bring a set of plans in and you go, okay, we like this set of plans, let's move on to the next step?
No,
The more
what
you have when you come in the first time, the less you have to bring in.
it's just
the
not
second
plans. You're going to have draw a picture of the door. You're going to have a picture cut out of the windows. You're going to have siding.
So I'll walk Bill through what a land use
Everything,
application
yeah.
is. So you need
She'll
to
help you.
decide if you want to come back for another design advice. The problem is when timing's an issue, these design advices kind of set you back out another month because based on what you have, Bill can come back and I can see and I can make a recommendation. I think he's ready to move forward with a land use application, or if I think he needs to come back. But land use applications, you generally need everything turned in 45 days before the hearing.
And the
And
other thing is,
so-
if you were to do another design advice thing like you're saying, and there's public land use things, it's going to get low on the list.
Yep.
It's low priority.
Well, right,
So
and
it
so, but I also want to make sure that you don't move forward and have a land use approval without coordinating your geo review.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
So, because that happened a while back where we did a land use approval and then it was an apples and oranges thing and it didn't
Yeah.
work out well. And
So you'll probably be halfway through design development when you come back and see us, because you'll have your geotech, you'll have some general feedback from your civil engineer, you'll have some of your exterior components figured out, and with material ideas and things like that. And
Sounds like the geo
So,
stuff's got to be figured out.
So you
Yeah,
can decide
it's
if you want
pretty
another design advice, which costs nothing to review, or if you're ready, you can pay and do the formal process.
Okay.
But it's time. to-
most people don't come in for design advice. This makes sense because you're deciding whether or not you want to buy it, but
Yeah, it's just not turning in plans and going to build, unfortunately.
yeah.
Well, one of the big questions, it seems like you guys are open to new construction in the neighborhood, and I didn't know the answer to that, to be honest, before we came in here. So
can't stop it.
That's half the question right
You don't
there.
want to stop it.
No.
No, I mean,
Bring
what
it
are we
on.
going to do? Just
Well-
not have anything there?
Improve that
Again,
neighborhood.
this is all new for me, so I just didn't know the answer to that.
Oh,
So
Make it as easy and painless as possible.
Really?
And still fit within the parameters
Yeah,
of.
that's
Yeah.
what we're here for, is
Yeah.
just make sure it fits in with everything else.
The one thing you will need to do, and this is going to be the part your designer may have to look at, but the massing of the new house compared to the historic house next door.
That's
trying
what
to
I'm
get
getting at.
because one of the requirements when you're in a sloped area, you do have to do a comparative drawing to show how you fit. So that's something your designer will need to do because the board's going to have to look at how the two
Yeah, it's
side
a big
by
deal,
side.
like elevation. How does that look next to the other one? That's a big deal.
And that's a little extra money, but when you're at a sloped site or a commercial site, it's required.
And if that house happens to be on the other side of the lot, and it's a little bit bigger, it's less noticeable than if it's abutting it.
Yeah, like
Just
at the
FYI.
setback.
So yeah, so
okay.
flipping, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you got any other questions?
Is there a house in the neighborhood that is just a perfect example of what you guys like to see? Is there, I mean, something that if I had general questions, whether it might be lighting or whatever, go look at this house. They did a great job. Is there a house like that around?
You could talk to Paul. I'm sure he has something in his head that he would tell you, or even Bob.
Yeah, there are 3 houses. I'm living in one of the 3 houses on Fifth Avenue, although they really enter on Fourth, that were approved by the board and fit the standards of the community as well. They were quite involved. So you could take a look at those 3 houses in general to see what seems to fit.
Okay.
Always the answer I always tell people is always use the historic homes in the neighborhood as your
Base.
Your
as
base.
your base.
As inspiration.
Because everything else is a riff
And-
on that. So always go back to what makes Kenema special and what's the historic buildings of Kenema, and that should be your.
You got to get out of the new construction mentality and look at stuff.
Paul's house would be a good one to look at for that reason.
And the house next door, But that's a different architectural style,
Yeah.
though. So if you, depending on what architectural style you've chosen, use the homes of that style as your.
Yeah, you're right.
As your.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Is that groovy?
Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you guys very much.
Thanks for coming
Thank
in,
you
man.
for choosing to
This
ask
is
for
the
the
right
advice.
process.
It's really
Thank you.
You bet.
heartening.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, next thing is adoption of minutes. Do you have any questions with minutes of August 28th? Were we here? Was I here?
You were. You weren't, I don't think.
I don't think I was here. No, I think I was.
Oh, man, I lost it.
All right, if anybody has any
I was here.
motions or recommendations, I'm ready to entertain.
Yeah. Prospect Street. I don't believe those have been built or even started. Have they? You know what I'm talking about? The 2 little houses that's on
We're
Prospect.
getting building permits right now.
Boy, they were on fire. And I drove by the other day. I thought those things should be done, or the way they're.
Yeah, that's the way the world works.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I read through this. I was
Yeah.
all looks groovy. Does anybody want to make a motion to?
I'll move to approve.
Anybody want a second?
I second.
Should call for a vote.
All right, Mr. Seward,
Yes.
Ms. Toll,
Aye.
Mr. Metzen,
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, that was intense. All right, the next thing is elections.
Yes, new year, new elections. We need a chair
Yeah, felt
and
like
vice
it.
chair for the board.
That Bard.
Oh, who's missing?
He's missing.
Well,
Let's
and-
vote her in.
Yeah.
And Vicki has said that, not knowing her snowbird's status, and luckily we are not as busy in the wintertime, so I think it
You think
works
she'll
right
be gone
now.
for a while?
What?
Or do you think she'll be gone for a while?
She'll be gone. She may be gone for the February meeting, but she'll be back in March.
Ah, no big deal.
Anyway, she has mentioned that she's not sure if she can fulfill her requirements, so that's out there. But
That's okay.
You-
Is there anything for next month?
yes, we have a land use application next
Okay.
month.
Well, there's 4 of us.
I will nominate John for chair.
I second.
Second. Oh, third.
Everybody gets off scot-free. Okay, well, put it to a vote.
I think I already did.
All right. Ms. Toll,
Aye.
Mr. Siewert.
Aye.
Mr. Metzen.
Aye.
Sounds like we have favor. We have our chair reelected.
I don't know what to say.
And then we need nominations for vice chair.
Oh, who? You're vice chair.
Yeah.
I am.
Does anybody else want to be it? I nominate Derek to be vice chair.
Second.
Okay, let's call for a vote.
All right, Ms. Toll.
Aye.
Mr. Siewert.
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we can adjourn.
One more thing. Next month, let you know, we will be doing a land use education with Carrie Richter, Oregon land use laws and some preservation laws. So,
For a work session?
our work session.
Oh, I'll give her a hard time.
So,
Well, let's see if the concert's still going. Let's see here.
Anything else?
that is all I have.
Adjourn.